Hello, welcome back to another live chat. My name is Laken and I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to chat about goals. We talk about a topic of the week. I update you on my goal progress, which I have an interesting, exciting update for you this week. Sorry, I'm trying to maneuver my camera. And then I answer any questions that you have about goals, planning life, whatever it is that is on your mind. So let's kick it off with our first question that we always start with, which is, what is one small win that you have to share from the last week? What is one thing that you checked off? One mindset shift that you had, something that you are proud of from the last week? I want you to share it with us. If you're here live, please say hello in the chat. And if you are watching the replay, please say hello down in the comments and share what your win is. While I'm waiting for the wins to pop up, I am going to share mine was embracing progress over perfection with my cookies. You will see when we get to the goal check-in section where I update you on my goals. One of my action steps for the month of July was to just do one batch of cookies. And I also meant to add a picture to my notes that I could pop up for you, but I didn't. If you follow me on Instagram, I shared them over on Instagram, and they were not my best batch, but I decided what I prioritized really was making cookies for something specific that I could share them with people versus I could just make them for myself and have more time. And therefore they could be more, probably still not perfect, right? They're still homemade, handmade. Anything homemade or handmade is not going to be perfect, but then I would just have them for us. And I wanted to share them with other people. So I had a shorter amount of time to get them done. I got them done and check that off, but it was more about progress and definitely not about perfection. So let me jump over to the comments. Let me also adjust the lighting for a second. Also, I'm getting a notification that the connection is unstable, which is so frustrating because my husband's not even home right now. Like, no one else is using my internet. So what the heck? Two of my friends came to visit from where I used to live. That is so fun. Being gentle with yourself at the gym and not pushing beyond your limits. I love that one. Those are the only two comments I see so far. I wonder if, again, because the notification that my internet is being slow. Usually when I get the notification, it just means that I'm blurry. And I apologize. I know it's not the most fun to stare at my blurry face, but we're here for the content, not about what's on my face. Ordered a jar vacuum sealer for storing dry goods. Oh, that's cool, Jennifer. That's really cool. All right. I'm sure some more wins will flow in, but I'm going to go ahead for time's sake because I have a lot of things related to the topic this week. I am going to share my reading updates. So I finished a book this last week. I finished the audio version of Becoming, which is Michelle Obama's autobiography. I had read it once before, like I'd read the actual book. And so it was fun to get to listen to her read it and like the inflection in her voice and all that. It was fantastic. So technically a reread for me, but I definitely enjoyed it. And then my intention was when I finished it, I was going to move on to Barack's autobiography because that was already in our Audible account because my mom bought it. She also bought this one. And so I was going to move on to that one. But then the day that I finished it, her second book I had put on hold at the library and it became available. So I just took that as a sign. I accepted it. And that is what I've moved on. I'm not very far into it, so I didn't even bother putting a percentage, but I did start her second book. I just love listening to her voice. My other two books made a little bit of progress, nothing significant. So still reading the third Court of Thorns and Roses book. And then let me know down in the comments. I'm tempted to take a break because we have family in town and my cousin has the third version of The Handmaid's. Is it The Handmaid? Housemaid is the book. And I was going to borrow it. And then I was like, but do I really want to interrupt my reading of these? But it's like so different. And my guess is I'll speed right through it. I don't know. I'm tempted, but I also am afraid that if I stray too far, I'm going to forget what's going on. And then still reading The Gap and the Gain is my hard copy book. My husband is trying to encourage me to finish this faster because he wants to read it. I'm like, well, sorry, this is where I'm at. Okay, I'm gonna hop back over to the comments for a second. Big win. I am 39 and just re-enrolled in university. Congratulations, Heather. That's amazing. Worked on the backyard this week, and so it's looking company worthy. Got 5 out of 7 days walking in. Awesome wins. Making shorter to-do lists and actually getting those things done. Oh, I feel that. I was going to buy a Kindle on Prime Day, but the deal is not that great, so I decided to wait. Did not order on Prime Day. I love all the wins on related to Prime Day. Connection looks good, not blurry. Okay, thanks. I don't know. Sometimes y'all have see it blurry and I don't get a notification, and then sometimes I get a notification and everything is fine. Hi from the Houston area, trying to catch up after the power being off. Oh, I'm so bummed to hear that. My in-laws also had power issues. Theirs is back now too. Such a bummer. I recommend taking a break between the books. It's a really long book. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, Jennifer. But my sister was like, no, don't take a break or you're going to forget what happened. So I don't know. Okay. Let's jump into my monthly goal check-in. So lots of progress being made on my goals this week. So first off, like I talked about in my win section, I did finish one set of cookies. So I checked that off. That feels really good. I got the birthday party invite sent out later than I wanted to, that's for sure. But all of our family that was planning to travel in from out of town, it's Labor Day weekend. Her birthday is Labor Day weekend for forever, her life, unfortunately for her. So it just is what it is. And so family that was planning to travel already had things booked. And most of our friends that live here are either like in town and free or aren't going to be in town. So it is what it is. Now I have to actually finish planning it. I started doing a little planning, but I'm struggling. Maybe I should have put this as a pop-up to get y'all's input. If you have any fun ideas for a 1-year-old birthday party, I'm not doing like the most extravagant thing, but there is a theme. And I'm trying to figure out how to lean into it, but not be too over the top because she's just one and she's not going to remember it. But I did just flip through all the pictures of my first birthday party when I was home with my grandfather had the album. And so I don't know, we'll see. All right. And then in terms of my recipe goal for my quarterly goal is to work on some new recipes, get some new recipes into our rotation. And my one-time goal for July originally was to make a list of new meals, of new recipes. But I talked about this on Instagram a couple of days ago. Truthfully, that is uninspiring to sit down and just pull recipes. When I discover new recipes, it's usually inspired in the moment by something specific, an ingredient that I'm trying to do, a type of recipe that I'm trying to incorporate, something in that moment when I'm meal planning or cooking, not because it's on my goal list. So what I decided to do instead was cross that one off and make a list of recipe resources. So YouTube channels, blogs, cookbooks, etc., things that I can resource or go to as a resource when I want a new recipe. So I asked on Instagram, and I want to ask you here as well, in case you didn't see it or you don't follow me on Instagram. I would love for you to share in the comments any recipe resources you love. So YouTube channels, blog posts, cookbooks, etc., that you love for recipes wherever you get your recipes. I would love for you to share because that is my next step there in my one-time section. In terms of my weekly steps, piano has been going well. I bought a new piano book and I've been playing a song and it's been super fun. And sometimes, most of the time I do it while Lila is awake. And sometimes she's just in the room and playing. And sometimes I actually have her on my lap and she's banging on one end of the keyboard while I'm on the other end. And it has gotten me thinking, I'll probably reflect on this more at the end of the quarter when I reflect on this goal as a whole. Is the point of working on this, sitting down at the piano and playing the piano again? Is it to do something when she is not there so that it is truly for me? Or is it am I still getting the enjoyment out of it while I'm sitting there doing it and she's there with me? In fact, I found myself doing it. I did once a week this month to start small, and I've been doing it a lot, kind of more frequently in shorter spurts. Have not started working on the photo albums yet. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Monthly tasks going well and finding a new meal going well. The daily habits are kind of hit or miss. I've been spending actually a lot more time on my phone, but I'm tracking some more things on my phone, on a separate piece of paper, times that I'm going to use for some goals next month. So that is my goal update. I feel like that was longer than I normally talk about this. Let me jump back over to the comments. Any questions, comments, thoughts? You're here live. Welcome. And your first time commenting. I love it. At 1, the party is more for the adults and their memories. 100%. Yeah, it's not. It's not for her. Looking back, the most memorable parties I had as a kid were the simplest themes, such as Pink Poodle, Oriental Trading Find. Oh, I always forgot about that Oriental Trading. I may look up that. I will share. The theme is Lila Palooza. So if you don't know, my daughter's name is Lila. And here in Chicago, there's a music festival called Lollapalooza. And last year when Lila was born, my stepdad had a shirt made for Sam, my husband, that said Lila Palooza on it. And it was just funny. And so we decided like that should be the theme for her birthday party. Whether we're going to actually lean into it being like about a music festival or it's just going to be like bright colors and like all about Lila and like her favorite things. We were joking, Sam and I were joking yesterday about like having different acts like you would at a music festival, but it being like the things that Lila loves. Or I don't know yet. I don't know. Other than like a very cute invite that my sister designed where she actually like found the Lollapalooza font and changed it to say Lilapalooza. And then it says like the headliner, Lila, and like Lila's first birthday. And it's got like a cute picture of her with like the Chicago skyline behind her. I don't know. That's all I've got so far. So we'll see. We'll see what we end up doing. But it really is just more for us. And then, for her to have a piece of cake or cupcake, something in that realm. Okay. All right. Wow. That was 12 minutes of a lot of things. Let's move into the topic for the week. Sorry, my nose is super itchy today. Okay. Okay. So in July, this month, we are talking all about routines and how they relate to goals, how to set a goal, to work on a routine, etc. This is probably one of the most requested topics. And truthfully, whenever I have the word routine in a title of a video, whether it's a live or a vlog or whatever, that people like, it gets more clicks than anything else, which tells me that people are interested in routines. So last week, we kind of did routines 101. We talked about the definition. We talked about how it relates to goals. We talked about some mindsets around your routines. This week, we're talking about designing the routine because step 1 for any goal is to get clear on what that goal looks like for you. You can't just say, I'm going to have a goal to have a morning routine and then start it tomorrow. There are some things you've got to think about and do behind the scenes prep work in advance. So step 1 is getting clear on what that routine could look like. Just like there is 1,000,001 ways to achieve a goal, there are 1,000,001 different ways for you to work on and implement a routine. Before we go through the steps today, I want to give you the reminder one more time that you are always allowed to change your mind. And in fact, you probably will. I always find that as soon as I film a video about a routine of mine, something about it changes. I did a live I say a couple of weeks, but I actually think at this point it was a month or two ago about my recurring tasks, like monthly and weekly tasks. And that system is still really working for me, but I've already changed things about it that I shared in that live. It doesn't mean that routine was bad or it doesn't work. It just means that I had to shift something or tweak something to have it work better for me, my life, my goals, etc. So when you go through these steps today, I don't want you to think that like this is the end all be all for this specific routine because it's not. Now, before we go through the steps, I would love for you, especially if you're watching the replay, but even if you're here live, I want you to think about a routine. I want you to have a routine in your mind that you are thinking about as we go through these steps. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you the 5 steps and then I'm going to give you some examples. We're going to talk through some examples that you actually gave me on last week's call. But I want you to think about what routine are you going to have in your head while we're going through this today. Step 1. This should not surprise anybody. Why do you want this routine? Ask yourself, why do I want to create this routine? Here's a couple of main reasons why we want routines. Is it to feel a certain way? Do you want to feel one way or another, either during the routine or when you're done with it? There was someone I worked with one-on-one once who wanted to have a morning routine. And she told me that the biggest reason she wanted a morning routine was so that she would feel some calm and some peace in the morning before she got to her job that was always chaotic and all over the place. And that was what was important to her, was that calm, serenity, peaceful feeling being a part of her morning. Is it a transitional routine? A lot of comments about a pre-work, post-work, a transitional routine. Is it meant to get you from one place to the next? Are you trying to change your hat, your metaphorical hat, from your work hat to your mom hat? Are you trying to change it from your mom hat to your work hat? Are you trying to change it from your at-home self to your in-person work self? Is it a transitional routine? Is it so that you don't forget to do certain things? That's a lot of my routines, is I set up routines so that I don't forget to do steps that are important to me. There's a lot going on in the day. There's a lot going on in my mind. There's a lot going on in life. And so if I don't have these routines set up, some of these things can fall by the wayside. And so it doesn't have to be just one of these things, but these are just some questions to get you thinking. Why is this routine important to you? What is the driving factor of this routine? And I want you to have that foundation before you move on to any of the other steps, because I'm going to tell you right now, having a morning routine because everybody else has one is not a good reason. Or having an evening routine because I feel like I should is also not a good reason. I want you to have your individual reason why you want this routine, the feeling you want this routine to give you, what hats you're changing from one to another, or so that you don't forget to do certain things. Another one, a question I don't have here, but also I feel like holds true for me, is embracing my energy, right? I'm a morning person. By having a very robust morning routine, it allows me to embrace my morning energy and get more things done than later in the day. Number two, step two, how frequently do I want to do this routine? And then how much time do I have to dedicate to it? Now, when I say frequency, how frequently do I want to do it? There could be more than one step depending on the routine. A lot of you also commented about a cleaning routine. There are likely components that are daily and weekly, monthly, quarterly, all the things. So that answer could be more than one, right? There could be daily, weekly, etc. If it's a morning or an evening routine, is it something you want to do every day of the week? Is it work days? Is it just days you work in the office? What does that frequency look like? Then how much time do you have to dedicate to it on that frequency, right? If it is something every single day, keep that in mind. You might not have 3 hours a day to dedicate to a routine every single morning. But if it is a weekly routine, you might have 3 hours to dedicate to it. We've talked about this before with cleaning routines. Is, do you see yourself as more of a little bit every day over the course of the week, or one day a week powering through and getting the whole thing done? How frequently do you want to do it? And how much time do you have to dedicate to it? The last thing I want to say on this before we move on, I want you to be honest with yourself. Okay? Do not say, well, if I start getting up at 5 a.m., then I have 3 hours. How often are you getting up at 5 a.m.? If that is something that you want to work on, that's a different goal. Getting up early is a different step towards working on that morning routine. But right now, how much time do you have to dedicate to it? When we pick or design a goal, especially a routine, based on some version of ourselves that does not actually exist yet, we are way more likely to not follow through on it, because there's something that has to change first, right? You have to start getting up at 5 a.m. in order for that 3 hours to be feasible. I want you to design a routine right now with where you're at right now. So right now, what time do you get up and what time do you start work or leave for work or start childcare or whatever it is that you start that takes up the majority of your day? And if you don't have anything, if you can have the longest routine you want, awesome. Love that for you. Most of the members of our community have some sort of full-time commitment, whether it is a job or childcare, caring for a family member, something. You have something that takes up the majority of your day. If it is something that you want to do, let's say on the weekends, you want to do something every single week. I am not sitting here telling you to say that like you can never miss a week, because that's not how that's going to work. And on the last week of this topic, we're going to talk about when life gets in the way and like when you miss a week and when you go on vacation, etc. But on a regular basis, assuming regular stuff, how much time do you have to dedicate to it? I also think Lila would be an awesome theme every year. I think eventually she'll probably pick her own themes, but like, I also feel like she could just use it for forever. Okay. Sorry, got distracted. Okay, number 3, step 3. I want you to brainstorm all the steps you could possibly include. This is like, there's kind of 3A and 3B here. All the steps you could possibly include. Now, what I don't want you to do is go Google things people include in their morning routine. If it does not come out of your brain when you're brainstorming, it's not important to you. Maybe you'll think of it later and you can always add it in later. That's great. That's fine. But off the top of your head, what are all the steps that you could possibly include? What are all the things that you could do? Get them all out of your head. All the steps. It doesn't mean that you're going to do them all. It definitely doesn't mean you're going to do them all on day 1. But I want you to get all the ideas and brainstorm them all out of your head. Then I want you to jot down. Again, we are not being data scientists. We are not trying to be super mathematical here. How long you estimate each of those steps taking, or that they could take, right? There are some steps that are likely part of your routines that could take anywhere from, you could spend 5 minutes reading, you could spend an hour reading. Then there are going to be steps that you're like, this is going to take 1 minute. That's fine. Taking your vitamins takes 1 minute. Brushing your teeth, according to my toothbrush, takes 2 minutes. And then there are some steps that I will leave a longer amount of time, but sometimes it takes me less. So for example, in my evening routine, there's a step that says shower/wash face. And I have set aside 10 minutes for it. If I am taking a shower and washing my hair, it will take me closer to that 10 minutes. Sometimes not even then. Y'all know I'm a bath girl. I don't like showers. If I'm taking a shower, it's going to take as the least amount of time as possible. But if I'm not showering and I'm just washing my face, it doesn't take me the full 10 minutes. But I would rather err on the side of what it could take me at the max. So if I was doing this exercise, I would say, 2 to 10 minutes. If I'm just washing my face, it's 2 minutes. If I'm just showering and not washing my hair, it's somewhere in the middle. And then if I'm showering and washing my hair, it could be up to 10. So the range might be that based on the options, but the range, like I said, with reading could also be up to you. If you have the time, it could be 60 minutes of reading. If you are trying to squeeze in as many steps as possible, it could be 5 minutes of reading. Again, I want to underline and emphasize the word estimate. You are guessing here. This is not rocket science. We are not trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle. We are just thinking about how long these steps could possibly take. Okay, step 4. We're going to prioritize them. Now, if you feel open to just putting numbers, starting at the top, working your way down, number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way down, or vice versa. If you're like, I could start with the least important first. This is definitely the least important, and then work your way backwards. If you aren't comfortable or you're not confident in giving them exact numbers, you could just do buckets. Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. If you watch my plan with me video from Monday, I started doing that with my to-do list and it is working for me. I break my weekly to-do list down between ASAP, sometime this week, and eventually. Sometimes I get to the eventually things and sometimes I don't. It just gets moved on to the next week. And sometimes it moves up over the weeks until it then becomes an ASAP thing, right? Ultimately, we are not looking for perfection here. We are not looking for like the most perfectly list of 1 through 10. I just want you to somewhat prioritize them so that they are not just a jumbled list of ideas. I also want to remind you, nobody's looking at this. Nobody cares what your priorities are. Nobody, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to everybody on this chat. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you want. Where do you want to prioritize these things? If it is more important to you to get the bathroom clean over cleaning the floors, great. Bathroom goes higher than the floors. If it is more important to you to light the candle rather than wipe off your desk, great. That goes higher. I don't care. It is what is important to you. And when you are doing this, if you're struggling at all, go back to number 1. Why? Does this thing on your list get you closer to this why? If the answer is yes, put it higher. If the answer is no, put it lower. That can help you prioritize. And then step 5 is going to be to kind of actually work on the jigsaw puzzle a little bit. Sketch out what this routine could look like with the information that you have right now. That's all you have. All you have is right now. So putting all those puzzle pieces together, you are going to put down what this routine could look like. Now, again, I'm not telling you you're going to wake up tomorrow and start this routine and do it perfectly every day for the rest of forever. Nope, we're going to talk about implementation next week. But I want you to have a rough thought of what this routine could look like for you. I'm going to get to this when we get to the example. Never mind. Okay. I'm going to check okay. Let's talk about some examples. And I had most of these examples on my list. I swapped out one based on your comments, but a lot of the comments was one of these. We're going to talk about 5. So the first one is your morning routine. This is really, really common. Things I want you to keep in mind for your morning routine. If you're not a morning person, this could be this big. I think we all have a morning routine of some kind. There are certain things you do every morning. Now, just because you have a routine doesn't mean you have to do it in the same order every single day. If that sounds monotonous and boring to you, don't do it. You can do them in different orders. You can do them at different times in the morning. You do what works for you. But keep in mind your energy levels in the morning, how much time you have to dedicate, and what is important to you about the morning. Okay? Everybody's priorities in terms of what their day looks like is going to be different. And this also shifts a lot over time. I think I shared this on last week's live, but my morning routine has shifted a lot from I started it when I was working a full-time job in an office. That was what my morning routine was initially based on somebody who had to take a subway to an office a certain time every single day. Then it shifted to, okay, now I'm a person who has to be logged on her computer at a certain time, but I'm at home. I don't have to get fully dressed and I don't have to commute anymore. Then it shifted to somebody who was in the office part-time. So my days look different. Then it shifted to somebody who works for herself, but I'm only in control of my own time. And now it's somebody who has their morning very much dictated by a little tiny human, but I still work for myself. I'm still a morning person. And now that my sleep is on the better side, I can actually embrace that morning energy now. There are certain steps that have not left my morning routine in that entire journey that we just talked about over the last 4.5 years, almost 5. But there are certain steps that have moved and gone to different parts of my day because that's not a priority for me when it comes to my morning routine. But again, I think the most important thing to remember here is be realistic. You're not going to be somebody that just wakes up at 5 a.m. starting tomorrow. If you want to have more time for this, you are either going to have to get up earlier or start your commitment later, and just keep that in mind. Evening routine. This one, almost the same thing, but on the other end of the day. Keep in mind your energy levels. Now, some of you are night owls, and so your evening routine can look much more robust than somebody who is a morning person. I know as a morning person, I'm going to keep my evening routine as minimal as possible. The other thing I want you to remember here with an evening routine is that's kind of what, the blanket statement. This could mean a number of different things. This could be a earlier in the evening routine, before dinner, slightly after dinner. This could be a after the kids go to bed, but I'm not going to bed, or it could be an actual bedtime routine. Some of the comments said bedtime routine. In my mind, those could be different things. You could have an evening routine and a bedtime routine. I don't want more than one evening routine because one is plenty for me as a morning person. So I'm going to lump them all in together. My anchor is when my daughter goes to bed. That's when I start my evening routine. It's got very few steps. I power through them. And then depending on how I'm feeling for the day, I either go to bed or I may do something else in between there. But again, not a requirement, but the key thing I want you to think here is where this falls in your evening. What are you going to anchor it to? Is it going to be something earlier in the evening, or is it going to be right before bed, or both? Cleaning routine. This was a very, wait. I have one more thing to say about these morning and evening routines. They don't have to be every day. I don't really care about doing mine on the weekends. It's not important to me. It's not as much of a priority. The things that are like key staples in my morning routine, feeding Charlie, taking my vitamins, those happen every morning, kind of regardless of whether I click play on morning routine. Same thing in the evening. Charlie gets fed. That's pretty much the only one that has to get done on the weekends. Okay. Cleaning routine. This is definitely one of those that the frequency is not necessarily going to be one thing. You probably are going to have different components. This routine is likely complicated. There's a lot of different moving pieces to it. The thing I want you to remember here with the cleaning routine is, somebody said it so beautifully in the comments. It is not something that if you miss it, like you, how do I say this? Trying to play catch up with something like this is going to make you always feel like you're behind and you're never going to be done. So while you may map out this ideal cleaning routine, it is not something that is necessarily going to happen exactly that way every week. And that does not necessarily mean that you're not making progress. So for me personally, I mapped out this beautiful cleaning routine that I really liked. It has daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly components to it, and it tackles our entire apartment. It also includes some decluttering. It includes like some deep cleaning things, etc. So I took this plan, right? And then I broke it down and I put it in with all my other routines. Like the daily stuff got put into my morning or evening routine. The weekly stuff got put into my weekly things, the monthly, so on and so forth. Since doing that, I have not done much more than I was doing before. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that I won't ever build my way up. And there might be times that I need to do more. And then there will be times that I feel like we are at a good baseline. I saw an Instagram post this morning that was like, insert frantic cleaning before company comes. And like, I can totally relate to that. And with what I'm doing right now, would I still feel like I have to do an extra level of cleaning before company comes? Yeah, I would. Like if my in-laws were coming tomorrow, there would be a lot of cleaning that needed to be done. But as long as I keep adding on steps, eventually I'll get to a place where that frantic pre-company cleaning will take me a little bit less time, and then a little bit less time, and a little bit less time. And it may never go away, but I will at least feel like I am in a better place. Also, when it comes to something like cleaning, this is where I really want you to remember that your priorities and what's important to you are just that. They're yours and they are for you. If you are completely grossed out by the floors being dirty at all, and vacuuming and mopping the floors every other day is important to you, but it means that your bathrooms only get touched once a month, fine. That is what is important to you. Or if you are the complete opposite and the kitchen kind of looking messy doesn't really bother you all that much because your spouse is the one that does most of the cooking. But if the bathroom is dirty and the counter is gross and there's toothbrush or hair or whatever grosses you out, and so you want to wipe the bathroom counters every day, awesome. You do that. You do not have to explain yourself. You do not have to tell anybody, maybe the people you live with. The priorities for cleaning are yours and yours alone. Well, I'm taking a lot more time to talk this week than I anticipated. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, budget and finances. This one, to me, is a lot more mental. This routine is less, for the most part, like all of these other ones, is time. It's how much time do you have to do them, and what are you going to prioritize? This one, there's time. If you're tracking and I've said before, we've talked about this and we've talked about recently on a live, I've talked about in a number of videos about budgeting, track every day and makes things easier. Then there's other finance steps that you could benefit from weekly, monthly, quarterly. It is not the most time consuming routine. It is more of a mental routine. And it is you being in the right headspace, and it is you focusing on the steps and not that you're doing a bad job or that you're not the best at things or whatever it is related to your finances that you struggle with mentally, because we all have them. One of the books I always recommend, right? I always get confused here. It's next to the avocado. It's called We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. Highly recommend. This one to me is about the time of day that you do it, where you're in a good headspace to do it and focusing on the mental side of it. Okay, the last one, which is one I didn't have on my list originally, but a lot of you included in the comments, and that was routines about starting and ending your workday. So these transitional routines where you are transitioning from home version of you to work version of you and back. So these are the types of routines that I would spend as much time as you can getting really clear on what that means to you. What's the feeling? What's the why? What does that transition look like to you? Then brainstorm, what are the steps that you could do that help with that? Is it lighting a certain candle? Is it changing in or out of something? Is it putting your hair up or down? Is it putting on socks or taking socks off? Is it eating something or drinking something specific? What are some of these steps that you could do that kind of get you in work mode or out of work mode? The other thing I want to say about these steps is they don't have to be long. This transition routine doesn't necessarily have to be like 30 minutes to an hour for you to feel like you transitioned. There could be 3 2-minute steps that you take 5 minutes on. I understand that math didn't quite work. Go along with it. And it still does its job. It still gives you that feeling. These are routines I don't feel like I've ever truly mastered. I feel like I've tried them in the past and I've never really figured them out. It's on my brainstorm list for Q4 potentially. But at the end of it, I also think, so the reason I say that is because I feel like with all these other ones, like the other examples I gave, I have figured it out for myself. And so I feel like I can confidently talk about how I can help you make it work for you. This one is harder for me because I don't feel like I've mastered it myself. But from what I do know about routines is this is one that is more about feeling and less about like actual tasks. And therefore it might take some trial and error to figure out what actually works for you. You might think that doing something on one of these routines helps you, and then you do it and it doesn't make a difference. So thinking about what you could try, being open to the idea that it may not actually work for you, and that's okay. This doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means you got to try something different. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking because that was a lot. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? If you're feeling overwhelmed, take a deep breath. It does not have to be this perfectly mapped out plan for you to be able to start a routine. We are going to talk about implementing next week, so make sure you're subscribed. But it doesn't have to be this perfect plan, but you do need a place to start. You need some steps to start with, and you need a place to begin. Okay, that is all that I have. The rest of this time is yours. What questions do you have? What is on your mind? It could be about your individual goals or struggles. It could be about a specific topic that you want to chat about. If you don't know how to phrase it into a question, you can just put topic and whatever the topic is, or whatever is on your mind that you want to chat about. Everyone's being so quiet today. What questions do you have? It doesn't have to be about routines. It can be about anything. The topic of the month is routines, and today was about designing them. But the next 20 minutes are about whatever y'all want to chat about. Anything that you feel like you're struggling with or you want to get my thoughts on, brainstorm. We can go back to talking about birthday parties for a 1-year-old. How is the goals with Laken Planner for 2025 going? Did you ask that because you got an email this morning? I haven't really even started it besides designing that email in the survey that went out this morning. So if you bought any 2024 version of the planner, you hopefully, if you did not, you can reach out to me. Got an email this morning with a survey for feedback for the planner in you is curious. So did you not get an email this morning? Did it not go out? Now I'm nervous. With a feedback survey for the 2025 version. that I have lots of ideas for and things that I'm thinking about, but I have not started working on it yet besides sending out that email. Oh, you got the survey. Okay. Phew. Phew. Thank you. You haven't opened it. That's fine. You have a whole week. I actually probably could have included that. Well, I didn't necessarily want everyone to get it. Anyway, if you bought the planner, there's a survey, an email with a survey. It shouldn't take you all that long. And I think I mentioned this in my goals video, that the plan is for me to work on all the changes. So that survey will be open for a week. That's what I meant to say. Step 1. Then I'm going to consolidate all the feedback and work on the changes for pretty much all of August. And then September will be kind of composing it, all like the actual like packaging of all the things. And then it will launch October 1st. So can you talk about consistency, percentage, or how long to keep tasks on a habit tracker? That's a great question, Michelle. So we have talked about consistency before inside the community when we were still doing topics. And what it comes down to when in terms of being consistent for you is what is important to you and what feels good. Sure, in some ideal world, you're doing something every single day. The feasibility of that is slim to none. Like, we have lives, things pop up, energies fluctuate, we get sick, we go on vacation, we are going to miss things. So we're going to talk about that more in week 4 when we talk about like life getting in the way of your routines. But when it comes to being consistent with your routines, what feels good for you and your goals? I know that for me, I care more about clicking start. I use an app called Routinary. You've all heard me talk about that a gazillion times. Every single day that I am like in work mode, clicking start. The likelihood that I do all of the steps hardly ever happens. I am constantly skipping steps. So to me, the consistency is starting the routine, even if I'm not doing all of the steps. Somebody else might feel differently. They might feel like I would rather do it 3 to 4 days and do all of the steps. It's what's going to work for you. So in terms of a percentage, there is no right or wrong percentage or something to work towards. What I will say on that front is that if you are a numbers person and you're motivated by numbers and like working towards numbers and goals, compare yourself to prior versions of you in a positive way in terms of improving. So for example, let's say that you're working on starting a cleaning routine that has you wiping down the counters every single day. And in an ideal world, you would do it every day because that feels good in your life. Again, I'm still telling you you're going to miss days. Okay. So in July, you track and you discover that you did it 16 out of the 31 days in July, just over 50%. Okay. That's a lot. 50% is a lot. So then you could set a more concrete goal for August to say, I'm going to do it 60% of the days in August. And then you work towards that. And then let's say you do it 61% of the days in August. So then you work up to 70%. 70% doesn't quite go. So you maybe do 70% for 2 months until it feels good. And then you work your way up to 80. And then maybe 80 feels good. Maybe with life and things that happen, that feels like that works for you. And you feel like you have made that into a habit. So then I'm using it to transition into the second part of your question about keeping tasks on a habit tracker. Then you take it off and you're like, this feels good. It feels like a habit. I'm going to take it off. And for 2 months, it goes well. And you're still doing it if you're not tracking it. So you don't know, maybe 70 to 80 something percent of the time. But it feels good. Your counters feel like they're wiped down and makes your house feel more put together. And then the holidays happen and things get kind of out of whack and you get thrown off that habit. And then you realize in January that you're not doing it very often and you're kind of putting it off. So you throw it back on. You throw it back on the habit tracker for February and you see how it goes. Just because you have to add something back on does not mean that you are a failure. So there is no right or wrong time to try taking it off. It's whatever I know that doesn't always help because you're like, I want you to give me a number. And I'm not going to give you a number. Because I want you to recognize, first off, there's no right number. And second, and there's also, the numbers can vary based on the goal. And so like, there's no right number, but I want you to figure out that feeling in yourself when you're like, okay, this feels good. And I feel like I can take it off. And then you notice when you might need to put it back on. And that doesn't mean that you have failed. And if those of you who have watched me and my goals over the years, there are so many goals that I have taken off and put back on and taken off and put back on. And it doesn't mean that I am bad at goals or bad at life. It just means that there are times that I was consistent and I didn't need that accountability. And then things got in the way, life happened, whatever, and I needed to put it back on. And sometimes it might feel like, well, am I going to like do that for the rest of forever? Am I going to consistently be taking things off and putting back on? And the answer is maybe. Like there might be things like drinking water that you are going to have to go through phases where you have to remind yourself that this is something that's important. And I feel like we all have things that to somebody else, it's really straightforward. I get asked a lot about like somebody taking vitamins or taking medication. That's never been a struggle for me. Like ever since I worked on that and made it a habit, I have never fallen off and needed to put it back on. And that's just one thing that's worked for me. But there are probably lots of things that I have to put back on that other people are like, really? You have to put that on your list? Like I do that just doing it. Okay, great. Everybody is different. And so there might be things that you always have to kind of keep an eye on and see like, do I need to add that back on? How's that going? And it's just getting better at those like feelings for yourself. Hopefully that was helpful. I was getting frustrated. I wasn't doing a daily task every day. So I added it in my weekly task to complete 5 of 7 days and have it in the daily tracker as well. It is helpful to have it in both places. Yeah, I love that. I've done that before too. Y'all have seen me do that, where I actually initially started this with my sister, with her doing it this way. And then I was like, oh, I like that idea. And then I included it on my goals. If it's something that you're working up towards. Given that we are planner people, we like having things to check off for sure, Lisa Marie. And if you aren't motivated by check mark, okay, some of us are and some of us aren't. It doesn't mean that you can't be successful at it. It's figuring out what does motivate you. How can you be inspired to keep going and to keep at the thing, even if it's not getting something checked off? Hopefully that was helpful. It does make sense that life is always changing, so habits will too. Exactly. And I've said this before. Sometimes like the life getting in the way is really obvious things, right? You retire, you move, you have a baby, you get married, you get divorced, well, like whatever all of those things are. And it's like, well, of course, this is a time that I'm going to check in with my habits. But sometimes like life just shifting a little bit that you can't even see over time also impacts your habits, or the weather changing slightly. Like, I don't know about you. I mean, Michelle, I know you're in the same climate I am. Like, what the heck has been with this heat and humidity? Like, I think the amount of water I needed daily in Chicago last summer is not what I need daily in Chicago this summer. And that might have to adjust. What the heck? At the end of the day, I will sometimes add things to my to-do list to check off so I can see what I actually did. Maybe I didn't do everything on my list, but I did 3 things that weren't on it. Absolutely, Monica. I love that tangible aspect of seeing that progress. I have said that before with like my goal sheet. How many times, like, are there things in my life that isn't captured there that did happen? And, you know, maybe there's a better way to not necessarily track it, but just like acknowledge those things at the end of the month. Like, here's all the things they did also do that wasn't on this list. So when I see, I don't personally struggle when I don't see the check marks, like on my goal sheet. Like I don't, when I have lack of check marks, like it doesn't bother me. But it's still nice sometimes to acknowledge the things I did do. The heat is crazy. I went out and bought a portable AC. Yeah. It is. It's so a lot. It's a lot. What else is on your mind? What other questions do you have besides how to beat the heat? Yeah, this is something else this year. I know. It feels like everywhere is struggling with it. I've never been more thankful for central AC than I am. Also, marking through days on the daily for if you know you're only going to do something Monday through Friday, cross out Saturday and Sunday. Yep, I love that suggestion. What else? Anything else that you are struggling with? Any questions that you have? Everybody's good? Warm and hot, but good. Anybody else have any upcoming trips? What about using a monthly view, monthly calendar to mark down the big highlights so that you could look back at it at the end of the month, quarter, year, and see everything you've done? Rachel, that's actually what I was thinking in my head, was using like a monthly calendar and writing down like the big things that happened, that didn't get captured, or even if it did get captured on a daily basis, it's not necessarily on at the top of my head, top of my mind, top of mind. Like for example, going live 4 times over the month, doing a coaching call 4 times over the month, recording 4 episodes of the podcast with my sister. I went on the boat with my family twice. I went to a birthday party. I went to a mom meetup, like, whatever all the things are. And they're captured somewhere on a calendar, on a daily pad or a weekly pad that I toss those. And so maybe it's kind of like making a summary of the monthly. Yeah, I'm going to think about that just for fun. Going to planning by the beach at the end of the month. That's so fun. Hopefully it's not too hot down there. Oof. We're actually not going anywhere for a bit, which feels good, but we're kind of staying put for a little bit here in what is supposed to be a beautiful Chicago summer, but happens to be a little bit warmer than I would like it to be. And we're not actually going anywhere till the second week of September. So I tend to track daily, but I also like having the monthly overview to be able to evaluate the month. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, I keep this page, right? And so I have this information, but I don't have the stuff that's not on here. I don't keep it because I just don't keep the daily or the monthly. I guess what I could do is keep my daily sheets, like my daily planner and my weekly planner, keep it for the month. And then at the end of the month, do like a summary of like everything I accomplished, not just the goals. That's an option. We all start doing that today. As of today, I will keep the weekly and the month and the daily. I don't know. This is where I get hung up on things, right? I'm like, I'm going to start that till August. But like we still have a whole half of a month in July. To Dunn's list for things that you want to remember and feels good to put there for sure. I don't know that I could see myself doing it every day is the problem. Like I don't necessarily see myself going back and doing it every single day. And so that's why I'm like, if I keep my planner pages for the month, and then at the end of the month, like go back and summarize, or maybe on a weekly basis, like keep my daily every day. Then at the end of the week, take the weekly page and jot down anything that wasn't captured, then keep that. And then at the end of the month, like summarize it. I know that I'm probably making it way more complicated than it needs to be. But sometimes this is how my brain works. And then sometimes I also feel like I just have to try it, right? I just have to try it and see if it works. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, let me tweak it or let me let it go. That's also an option. Thoughts. Okay. Anything else on your mind? Any other questions? Oh, I love this for you, Lisa Marie. I'm on a staycation. I took a week off of work just to relax and recharge. I love that. I need to be better at reviewing my daily highlights at the end of the month. That's a good reminder too. All right. Speaking of highlights and commitments, let's answer. Where is it? There it is. My last question. What is the one thing that you are going to do this week to make progress on your goals? What is the one step you're going to make this week to make progress on your goals? If you're here live, please share in the chat. If you are watching the replay, please share down in the comments. I want to hear about your steps. Yeah, weekly reflection of the past week. I'm not good at this. Like, I just want to get on to planning the next week and not work on the weekly reflection piece of it, but I can see how it would be helpful. Same with the monthly. I'm also not good at that. I'm also always like, let me move on to the next step. Open a high yield savings account. I love that step. Work on your budget. Lots of money related steps. What else? What else is everyone working on this week? Trying to see how much coffee is left in this thing. I'm going to be sad when it's gone. Oh, coffee. So good. All right. Anybody else? Do some strength training. Love it. Oh, I guess I can share mine with you. I did put this here. Just keep swimming and reminding myself that messing up is not failure. In case you also need that reminder. I know that's vague, and I'll talk more about it later, but paperwork for an upcoming appointment. Start reading one of the 3 library holds that all came in at the same time. Oh, I am the queen of like, deliver later. Adding one more step to your Sunday planning routine. So far consistent in 3 weeks with the first 2 steps. I love it, Linda. Plan ahead for a summer party. So fun. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I know I talked a lot more about the topic this week instead of answering questions, but as always, if you are watching the replay and you have a question that you want me to answer next week, throw it in the comments and I will answer your questions next week. But I want to also hear about your routines. Let me know what routines you are currently working on. And next week, we will talk all about implementing them and actually working on committing to and sticking with our routine. So make sure you're subscribed and give this video a thumbs up before you head out. I would greatly appreciate that. And I will see you all next week. Thanks for hanging out.